Hello, everyone, and welcome to Celebrating Cinema. It's me, Kiriko. You're listening to a new series of ours, which is called Future Frames. This is a series where we celebrate emerging Dutch filmmakers whose frames we are excited to see more of and claim the screen. As hosts, we've each picked someone we would like to celebrate and speak with. In this edition, you'll hear from 5 filmmakers and their personal relationship to cinema. This will be recorded in English with the intention of an international audience, wherever you are, who can access the talents here in the Netherlands. For my pick, I have chosen Razan Hassan. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
Good. Such an honor. I'm really happy you chose me.
With a lot of pleasure, I have chosen you. It's an honor to have you here. It has been quite an exciting period for you, I guess, or at least I recently saw your Instagram, you winning a quite noticeable award here in the Netherlands, which is the Shortcutz Awards for Best Documentary. And I saw this documentary. It's called Between Glass and Walls, which is, I think, a third-year Film Academy school assignment, which has then just took off and it's going in festivals all around the world, and everyone's been talking about it.
Yeah, it's crazy. We didn't expect that when we were making the film, actually. Like, it was just third-year film, a practice, you know? And luckily, Ahmed Al-Haj saw it, who's a distributor in France. He owns this distribution company called Wind Cinema. And he saw the film and he was like, I want to distribute it. I want to send it to festivals. I want to take care of it going out, you know? And we had such interesting conversations about the film, the content of the film, what he sees in it, how he sees it, in order to also feel safe, you know, to who am I giving my baby to, you know? And he did a great job. He sent it to a lot of festivals. We received so far 4 awards. The Shortcutz was the 4th one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
amazing.
It's really unexpected.
So the film is called In Between Glass and Walls.
In Between Glass and Walls.
Could you talk a little bit about what this film is about?
So the film is about, in the essence of it, is about the other and how you can see yourself in the other, recognize yourself in the other, and slowly having that otherness vanish and disappear. And in our case, the other was the son of the main character. When she was pregnant, Anna didn't know that Felix had Down syndrome. And then in the middle of her last month of pregnancy, doctors asked her to come for a checkup, and they were like, oh, we need to deliver right now, immediately. So in the middle of this kind of surprising traumatic experience that she went through, that she had to go on a C-section while she was planning on having like a home delivery, and it's like a whole intensity of like, no, we're going to deliver now, otherwise the baby's not safe. So she saw all this like blood and all this, like suddenly, like she wasn't prepared to deliver her baby. And then in 2 hours, the doctors came to tell her that, oh, actually, your child has Down syndrome. So that kind of made a shock for Anna and put her in a position of like, oh, what is this? You know, she never thought of it even. She never really considered it as an possibility. And it was her first child also. And then slowly after this period of like, let's say, post-delivery depression?
Postpartum?
Yeah, maybe that's the word. She started researching. She started like going to organizations, theaters, creating art with people with Down syndrome, almost turned into an activist to know what the hell is this, to be able to connect with her child, to be able to connect with herself as well, you know? And for me, that journey was like super inspiring and super beautiful to witness and to reflect on together with Anna, especially that because she was openly talking about this kind of emotions that she didn't accept her child in the beginning, that kind of also put her in that other, as in the stereotype of a mother is usually like, you're gonna love your child no matter what. And for her case, it was not immediately the case, you know? It wasn't immediately that she was like, oh, I'm in love with my child and I'm happy to have this baby. So she was already also othered. So there was a lot of layers of othering in the film that eventually they reveal themselves through communication, through playing, actually, through learning from the other and learning about yourself through this journey.
One thing that captured me the most about this film, and I think in general about all the work that you make, is that you make documentaries. You're a documentary filmmaker, but there was a layer in this film where your main character is an actress. You filmed her in a way where you can see her also playing a role, or at least see her acting and doing her job and showing her own vulnerability, but in a way that is constructed, in a sense. Is it something you also look for in the reality, or at least in the way that you capture reality?
So I always have that kind of, or I had that until now in the Film Academy, for example, that there's this distinguish between like documentary and fiction. I agree sometimes for some films it's really important to have the raw film, the raw materials, the raw reality, let's say. But then the question comes of what is reality, you know? What is reality and what is fiction? And for me, when we play with those concepts, we're kind of breaking or learning how to break illusions that we create as, oh, this is reality, this is truth, this is what it is. And to be honest, for me, that has been a life journey, not only in film, not only in cinema, but like coming from where I come from, having like a whole, almost like I traveled in time and in space from Syria to the Netherlands. In 1 year, my life has like went upside down. A lot of the morals or the, let's say, social codes or what is right and wrong, what is truth. This has been kind of like a life journey. Like at some point when you're confronted with a cultural shock, you're confronted with identity crisis, you're confronted with what is real, what is considered all my life, like my whole life, this was, perceived as right, and this been perceived as wrong. And then you come to another place, another context, and it's not the case anymore. Something changes in you. Then the deeper you go in this meta thinking, let's say, the more you start perceiving reality in a different way. And I feel like that kind of reflects in my films a lot, that there is no such thing as just fiction or just documentary. We're always playing, we're always framing, and by framing we're already fictionalizing, we're already putting a spice of our imagination in the film, you know?
So would you even call yourself a documentary filmmaker?
Depends on the film. With In Between Glass and Walls, I would say so. I wanted to go extreme with the genre, let's say, like the observational fly on the wall, almost not feel the maker. But no, I wouldn't call myself a documentary maker. I'm a cinema lover.
It's interesting what you say, because I can also imagine the way in which stories are framed, or reality is framed, or fiction is framed, is also a cultural narrative that you learn. And I would say here in the Netherlands, or at least the cinema education that you have, is very European based. And before recording, we briefly spoke also about the Syrian history, or you mentioned the Syrian New Wave, which is a stream of cinema that I had never encountered before, where I looked a couple of things up online, and it's such a different language that I feel that I need to learn before you know, it's almost like a different type of emotional training that you go through.
It's so true. I actually, like, now that you mentioned language, eventually it's also like, I think as a filmmaker, you're constructing scenes as you construct sentences, how you communicate, you're communicating. And the language you come from, like the language, your mother tongue, or the language languages you learn, or the languages you speak, they influence how you see a scene, how you construct a scene, how you construct, like, like for example, if we think about Arabic language, my mother tongue, there's always the same word. If you put it in different place in the sentence, it has a different meaning, and that's something like we learned also in the film academy about like Kuleshov effect, like how you can, with the same image, if you put it in different context, can bring a different emotion, different meaning. And in Arabic, it's something very strong in the language that I feel like with my films sometimes I'm like I really want to play with the edit a lot. To the same image, sometimes I want to, like the same shot, let's say, I'm always curious, like, how can we use it differently? How can we bring it to another light? How can we make it have a different, totally different meaning, or just add another layer of the meaning, or, you know?
It's Arabic Hassan montage technique.
We're just playing. I don't know, man. I don't
know. It's curious to know how where your love for cinema started also. Do you have like a first memory of cinema in your life?
Yes.
Tell us.
Okay. So when I was a child, first, I used to write a lot. And I wanted to become a writer. But then one day, my uncle left this video camera at our place, and the house was a mess. So that's when I was like 10, 11, something like this, you know? The house was a mess, my mom was away, and I was like, I want to make a surprise for my mom. So, but the camera was there and I wanted to play with it, you know? So I held the camera and I was filming the room, and then I filmed the room when it's a mess, like with a round film, like going around. And then I turned off the camera, and then I made the room, like I tidied up the room, and then I
so cute. Oh my god, it's the perfect daughter.
No,
it's
not
a
anymore.
makeover video.
Maybe I used to be, but that's long gone. Anyway, so I would film the room afterwards immediately when it's tidied up, and I would watch the materials after each other, and it's like magic, you know? I would almost make like a tutorial also, like, look how we're gonna turn this room into, and then I click, boop, off. I make it really tidy and nice, and then I film it like, ta-da!
So sweet.
So that's how my love for, like, let's say, camera and editing or playing with that form started. But if we talk about like which films have like what cinema has brought me, honestly, in Syria, I didn't go to a lot of cinemas. It was I think I can count the times on my fingers, like the times that I went to the theater, you know. But I was so in love with films. I was obsessed. Like, it's like kind of a way of running away from a reality I wasn't really fitting in, and finding myself in that reality, and sometimes flying away with it, you know?
What kind of films was it that you disappeared in?
I remember in my teenage years, like, there's this film that I watched and I was like, wow, this is amazing. The Dreamers by Bertolucci. I was like, this is so wrong and so good, you know? Like, there's something I'm seeing that I never saw before. It's also about revolution and stuff, and that period in Syria, we were like the Arabic Spring was starting, so I was really hoping for something to happen in Syria. But if I say that out loud, my mom would be, watch out, you know? I didn't care. I was always like sharing, like, oh, I hope next, like our turn will come. And then children actually started the revolution in Syria, in Daraa. So watching that film in that period was like opening my heart and my mind to new possibilities of
That's so sweet.
what a revolution is, what love is, what cinema is also. Like that kind of perversion that cinema makes you sit down and watch and be like, it's okay, it's not you, it's the film. But maybe it is me. And then the spiral goes deeper and deeper until it's like almost like an invitation for knowing yourself and relating to the world, relating to your humanity, relating to your alienation, relating to the craziness the world offers sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can also give you the stimulants that you need in life at the moment to understand that there is an alternative. I think The Dreamers is a film that a lot of teenagers especially just they can relate to so well, because it also has this sense of romantic recklessness of just doing whatever you want, and then in the end, you know, by through your recklessness you can achieve something for yourself, which is, as a teenager, something you need to hear.
I think, to be honest, for someone who's like, if I talk about my personal experience in that context, when you're living under a dictatorship, under a lot of social control, a lot of taboos are, you know, like there's a lot of taboos. And I'm not that person. I'm not like, if there's a taboo, I'm going to go and poke it until I rust it open, and I want to learn. I want to know. I'm curious, you know? So that film kind of showed me or told me like, oh, it's okay, you know, you're not alone in your curiosity, or like maybe it's considered to be perverted in certain context, but yeah, I don't know how to explain it.
And there's, I think, also a strong sense in a lot of Bertolucci's films of like anti-establishment. He's always trying to fight the status quo in some way or another. Oh, that's it's beautiful that Bertolucci meant something for you.
It's insane. Like someone who lives in a totally different context, being able to reach a teenager in a totally different geographic place, time and space and everything, and yet be able to wake up something in you and connect with you, you know? There was also, I remember watching Cinema Paradiso in that period also. There was like a group of friends in Syria that were so in love with cinema, but we were all watching films that are on the computer, you know. We were in love with films, and we would call it cinema, although we're watching them on the laptop, like in our living room. But there was this like, it's so magical what it did to us. We opened so many conversations that we otherwise might not be able to talk about. Or there was also The Taste of Cherry by Kiarostami. And
is that also around the time that you decided that you wanted to be a filmmaker?
Yes. It was a crazy thought though, because there was no such, like there was no film academy in Syria. There was no real industry, let's say. And when there's a lot of censorship also, like there's too many layers to it. So in that time, it was a crazy thought that I had to become a filmmaker. When I would say that, and everyone would laugh at me. But I remember when I was 18, I wrote this film. It's called My Mirror. And I saw this girl from far away, and she was like studying dance in the Dance and Theater Academy. And I looked at her and I was like, I want you. She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, I'm making a film and I want you to act in it. It's like, okay, let's talk. So we had a coffee afterwards and we talked about the film. And basically, I had to make it all by myself because so many in the beginning, but then people jumped in after the shooting and they started to see the potential, and but before that there was like, oh, this is such a it's just a text. It's not it's not like not cinematic. There was like this director I talked to and he was like, yeah, this is not it's not a potential film. It's just a stream of thoughts or something. Like he couldn't see the script as a script, Okay, nobody wants to listen to the 18 years old Razan. I'm gonna do it all by myself. So I brought my camera, and my friend had a room where it was like nice to film in. I made some like production design in the room, and Lujane came and she just performed beautifully. Like we basically were playing, like dancing on music. It was more of a dance film than like there was no dialogue or anything. And later I went to do an editing course, and there I met Ala, who's a director, and I told him about the film. And when I showed him the materials, he was like, we're gonna work on this. We're gonna make it happen, And he kind of like took responsibility with their production company, and he made the editing. His brother made the music, and like suddenly everyone was like involved, and the film came to life. And from that moment, I was like, if you want something, you can make it happen. If you really put your mind into something, it will happen, And I just never stopped.
It feels like it's the moment when you decided to make film, you also became part of a language that we spoke of earlier, of, I think, Syrian filmmakers who have their own way of telling a story. And we spoke about this earlier briefly, that the films that in the past couple of years, at least here in the Netherlands, that have gotten a lot of attention, the Syrian documentaries that we show that we see are mostly documentaries that are where the war is the main narrative, and it's also the one story that I have been told when it comes to Syrian documentary, whereas some of the names which you should repeat in a second that you have mentioned to me are narratives where the war is there in a subtle line somewhere in the background. That is not something that you can ignore, but it is not the only story that we hear.
When there's something like as devastating and as fucked up, I can't put it any other way. In the first couple of years, it was peaceful demonstrations against a regime that was oppressing people for 40 years of oppression, 40 years of separation, of implementing an ideology of one party, one way of thinking, and stealing our country from us. We didn't own our country. It wasn't our country anymore. So when there's something as huge, as bombastic as that, it makes total sense to that this would be like the most, let's say, headlines or the biggest subject that would reach Western media. But there's so much more, there's so much more to that country, there's so much more to that culture, there's so much more to us as people, but also to cinema there. Syria is a very rich country. Let's start a little bit there, because that brings us to the filmmakers I told you about, like Ammar al-Baik, Halal Abdullah, and Abu Fakhr, Abu Kaprilian, and Sarah Fattahi, and Sudut Kaadan. Like, there's some filmmakers that I'm like, like their way of making cinema. Of course, there's also a lot of other filmmakers that I respect their work and I find them like important to be shown. But those filmmakers, they find a way to keep the poetry in the film.
Because what is it that you would say that connects these people with each other? What is the Syrian New Wave?
I feel like I have a lot to learn still about Arabic cinema and Syrian cinema. Like I'm really like I wouldn't my knowledge is really humble. The people I'm telling you about, they're my friends also. They're people they became my friends. I actually haven't heard of the term Syrian New Wave before. I didn't know there was a movement of cinema in Syria until not so long ago, you know?
So it's something you discovered here in the Netherlands?
Yes. Like when I was in Syria, we were people who, like the friends I was telling you about, we were just watching films. We were like creating some little things, but not really making films, you know? And then one day I hear iFilm Museum has this program called the Syrian New Wave. And they had, I think, 3 or 4 filmmakers that showed their work. And I was like, oh, wow, I want to go see this, you know? In that time, I was also working as an assistant programmer for ITFA. So I started also receiving those documentaries from Syria, watching a lot of materials and films that are coming from my country. And I was like, wow, like there's a whole scene that I didn't know about, you know, that people are really creating films. In the time where I was still busy surviving, you know. So I went to the cinema and I saw Ammar al-Beik and Avo Caprilliana and Sara Fattahi, and they had their film screened there. And I was mesmerized. I was mesmerized by the rawness and by the like, how to call it, the, you know, when some films are very pretentious, those films didn't have that, you know. And I was like, whoa, I want to know more about those makers. I want to dig deeper in this new wave.
Can you tell us about a film that you saw there that had this rawness to it?
Houses Without Doors. Avo Caprillian. Avo is a Armenian Syrian filmmaker, and he made this film from his balcony in Aleppo during the war. So the war is definitely there in the film, but it wasn't the main subject, I would say, you know? And the whole film was out of focus. You're watching materials out of focus for like 2 hours. And the opening scene of the film is this scene from El Topo, from Jodorowsky, where Jodorowsky takes this child, this naked child on his horse, and take him in the desert and asks him to put the picture of his mother and bury it.
Wait, the opening scene of El Topo was the opening scene of
Houses Without Doors.
Okay.
Yes. And then you go deeper and deeper with Avo from his camera. Like you're not anymore with El Topo, but the film starts with El Topo. It starts with Jodorowsky. And it's striking, you know, like from Jodorowsky going to Aleppo, from the window, from the balcony, and everything is out of focus. It's so irritating. It's like so annoying, so edgy. And you're like, what is this? You know, like you're almost like scratching your tongue.
It's the new wave.
Is this the Syrian New Wave? That's how I felt. And then, of course, the maker comes on stage and they talk about the choice, which is basically a very interesting input that Avo mentioned in that moment, which was that we are in the middle of the war. You cannot document the war. You're in the middle of it. In order to document something, you need to have a little bit of time and space between that event and what's happening, because otherwise, how are you gonna document it? You know, you're just a witness. Let's say you're just sharing what you see. And for him as a maker, he saw everything out of focus. He couldn't grab reality the way some documentaries tend to do, you know? The thing about this this form of making films, or those makers also, and our conversations together later, and our friendship that grew throughout the years, that there's this kind of originality, uniqueness, but also doing what they want and not following to the industry, for example, not being manipulated, let's say, by the industry to make their films. They're just making their films out of urgency, out of love, out of passion for cinema, but also for life, you know? To me, that's something that is definitely missing here for me as a maker in the Netherlands. Like, I play a lot, I'm learning still, I'm in the academy, so I'm still a student also. But I also feel like there's lack of urgency, there's lack of rawness even, that comes because of the lack of urgency.
One of the films that you recommended to me was So We Live by Rand Abu Faker. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. So it's a short film where a camera, basically, it just turns around for a couple of times, capturing a daily life in a living room of a family consisting of 4 people who are, going about their lives. And you sense that there is unrest going on outside of the house, and how that influences the conversation or the relation of the people in the house. But it is so everyday life, in a sense that you're there just being able to turn around and look in a space for a couple of minutes, which I think it is the same rawness that you just described, where you're not seeing the pain, you're just to an extent seeing 1% of the pain that could be there but not be understood.
You see, that's what I'm talking about when we're talking about this kind of out of focus situation, this kind of not leaning into the industry, let's say. A lot of it's easier to go to tell directly we're making a film about war, you know? But that's what I find really like genius about Ren, that she's never showing you what is, but inviting you basically to think of what could be happening, inviting you to actually the state that we have been living throughout those years during the war, that you're not always necessarily confronted with the war in a direct way, but you're sensing it. You're sensing the trauma around. You're feeling it. Like, what I love about the film, that she invites you to be with the family and sense and imagine what could be and not what is. You know. It's also super difficult to make such a film. It's a one-take film. You know, technically speaking, like, they basically invented that machine that will tour around the room while the crew is outside of the room. And she worked with non-professional actors. And yeah, for me, Ren did something very special in that film. And now she's working on her feature film, so I'm really excited to see what's gonna come next.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. The style of storytelling that you described as filming out of focus, let's say, or filming but not actually filming the thing that is there, but just sensing it. Is that something that you do in your work as well?
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. But if we're talking about In Between Glass and Walls, it was definitely the case. In Between Glass and Walls was a documentary about this family and about Sarah and about the struggle and love and layers that this family is going through with their child and with themselves. But on a layer, it was also about Syria. Like, it was also about me being a refugee. It was also about my relationship with my mother. You know, it has all those layers, let's say, that are not necessarily directly poked or showed to in the film, but if you analyze it, you would get there, you know, if you watch it with the context, not only watching a film, but with the context that it comes with it. Who's the maker? Why the subject? What is the film really about? Not only what we see, you know? And I really noticed that this way of looking at a film changes when there's subtitles on or where there's no subtitles.
In what sense?
So, for example, when we screened the film in Egypt, those layers I'm talking about, everybody saw. Everybody noticed that the film was not only about a mother with a child with Down syndrome, because there were subtitles, because there was another layer of, like, that's my analogy, of course, not only, but also because they have the context of an oppressed country, like where it could mean, where it could go, you know. Also the language, as we mentioned before, that, like, do we look at it in a direct way, in a recht toe recht aan, like this equals this and this equals that, or do we see a bit further, you know, what is the filmmaker communicating here? And I noticed in Egypt, people, I didn't have to mention those layers, or I didn't have to, not that I do that usually, but like, it was really heart-opening to see that people could see through it, you know? While in the Netherlands, for example, no, it's a film about a mother with a child with Down syndrome, you know?
But then, I mean, you're considered a Dutch filmmaker now.
Okay, who considers me like this?
Well, maybe. I mean, you're now currently based in Amsterdam. Those things can change, of course, but you're making films here in the Netherlands. You're receiving Dutch prizes here for Dutch film as a Dutch film director, or maybe a Syrian Dutch film director. Is it complicated that your Dutch audience perceives your film in a different way, or is it maybe you enjoy it? How do you feel about that?
I have to say, I don't identify as a Syrian Dutch filmmaker. I don't identify as a Syrian filmmaker. I don't identify as a Dutch filmmaker. I don't identify as a filmmaker, even, you know. I'm just a human playing with a form, you know. What that form brings to people, how people perceive it, it's up to the people eventually, you know. What you see in the film is also what you see in yourself, or what you perceive, how you perceive reality, how you perceive art, how you perceive film. When you make a film, it has its own life, you know. People are gonna take what they want to take and see what they want to see, hear what they want to hear, feel what they want to hear, feel what they want to feel. So for me, at this point of life, I'm not how to call it, like attached to how my film should be perceived or how my film should be felt. I hope for certain things to be communicated and to be experienced. It's an invitation, you know? And those who accept the invitation and enter, and they like it depends also. Sometimes you invite people to your home and they come and they sit and they do like that's it. They sit down and they're very passive. Sometimes they come and they bring flowers. Sometimes, so for me, what the film does to people is what they bring to the home. You know, like I don't know if
it's so beautiful. It's so sweet.
Yeah. So it's an invitation. And what you want to do with it as a Dutch audience, as an Arabic audience, as a Japanese audience, as whatever, we're all just struggling on this planet, and films are just our window to something.
So what is it that you're playing around with form at this moment?
Oh my God, I'm in a crisis, babe.
Tell us about it.
So now we're working on the graduation film in On the Edge of Life. I saw a film.
That's the title.
على حافة الحياة رأيت فيلما. It's basically a hybrid film about this girl on the edge of a high building, contemplating life and death and rebirth and suicide, actually. Like she's about to jump, but then her jump turns into a journey of searching and wandering around to find answers. And in that journey, she meets with 3, in my perspective, mythical characters, mythical creatures. They're very much a human, but the encounter is very mythical. The encounter is very transcendent. And one of them is the doula, who witnessed a lot of births and deaths, people giving birth and people passing away. And the oracle, an amazing old woman who's not afraid of death, who embraces life to the fullest and wants to celebrate it even after death, you know. And the third character is a performer who's very much playing, I would say, between femininity and masculinity, and with transforming into a new form in their performance and in their mission in life, let's say. So that's those encounters basically bring her into a different light in her vision of life, basically. I wouldn't say much more because I think it's a more of an experience film than a story. I'm really looking forward to share it with everyone and to live this experience in the cinema all together.
It sounds so beautiful, and it also sounds as if you're making something in full focus. Nothing is out of focus in this film. It's so exciting. It will be premiering on the 5th of July in Keep an Eye Festival.
So the 5th of July, the festival starts, but I don't know when exactly it will be premiered, but in that week.
In the beginning of July, we will be able to see your film in the Eye Film Museum in Amsterdam. And then I think in between Glass and Walls is... we can see it on the NPO.
It's on Tweedok. We're also going to see your film in Keep an Eye.
Yes, that's true.
Can we mention this in the podcast, or is it like a secret?
I'm not sure, but yes, we'll be able to show both of our films during the festival. Razan, it was such a pleasure to have you here, and thank you for your open hearts and your beautiful words and your wisdom and your advices and your honesty.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this Celebrating Cinema series, Future Frames. Make sure to listen to the rest of the Q's conversations. Please leave a review on whichever platform you listen on and share so more people can discover both us and our future framemakers. As always, we provide show notes including all films that we mentioned and links to the filmmakers' work at celebratingcinema.com. This was a Lab 111 production, edited and produced by Elliot Bloom and Yvonne Gissi, with music from Hugo Emerzal and artwork by Studio FFF.